Adam, let's start off with some news that's come out today. Canelo Crawford looks like it's set for Netflix. I just want to speak to you a little bit about Netflix and their involvement in boxing. They've sort of come in over the last, say, 12 months here and there, and they seem to be potentially, if they're going to get a broadcast deal with TKO, Turkey, Dana White, they could potentially be set to be a big player as a broadcaster in the sport. What do you make of the Netflix coming into the sport?
Look, I think it's fantastic when different platforms, broadcasters, streamers are in our sport. I think I was at Sky for many, many years, and a lot of platforms came and went, and Sky just sort of stuck through it all. And then DAZN came in a few years ago, and as we know, so Eddie went to DAZN, and we then at Sky had Ben Shalom, and the process continued. And DAZN have become the home of boxing in many ways over the last 2 or 3 years, particularly now with Queensbury joining forces with Matchroom. And then we get the news about Ben and Sky, and no one really knows what's sort of going on there. And on a global, I guess in the global space, you look at the sort of way Showtime and HBO have fallen away. They were hugely involved in boxing stateside for many, many years, while Sky sort of kept everything intact in the UK. Huge nights on Sky, on HBO, on Showtime. And then, of course, TNT, and before that, Setanta, and others have sort of come and go. Channel 5 still dip their toe in. So in many ways, it's sort of the more the merrier. I think, yeah, DAZN have, as I said, become the home of combat boxing. You know, when I'm doing my promotional sort of runs on DAZN, it's mad how much is there, from regular boxing to misfits to bare knuckle to kickboxing, which we were promoting for next week. There's so much going on, and I think the opportunity for Netflix to come in with the Jake Paul Tyson fight, which was a spectacle, which was a showcase. However you look at it, it wasn't a fight in my eyes, but it was more of an exhibition, I guess. And I didn't like the fact Tyson was coming out at 58, but I understood it, and it got a lot of eyeballs on our sport. Jake Paul and Logan Paul and KSI and other social media influencers, big names, chose boxing. They didn't choose cricket. They didn't choose football. They chose boxing. And so I think it's put eyeballs onto our sport. So I think the entry of Netflix is fantastic. Got Casey Taylor a huge amount of money for that second fight with Serrano. They go again for a trilogy on July the 11th, which is huge. The very next night on DAZN, there's the Ring Magazine third show from New York with Hamza and Shakur Stevenson, and that's in an iconic setting as well. And now we hear that Netflix are involved in Crawford and Canelo. So look, it's fantastic to have this amount of interest in our sport. I sit here as a DAZN man now, as a commentator for DAZN. Would we have wanted to do the Canelo Crawford fight? Of course, we want to be involved in everything, but I think also competition and exposure is massively important. I remember when Eddie was with us, and I think Frank did the deal with TNT, and he was like, "Oh, we've got TNT now involved as well as Sky," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's good. That will raise our standards. That will make us at Sky with Eddie fight harder." And I think that competition is good. It's healthy, and I think in a nutshell, it's a long answer, James, to your question, but basically, I think the fact that boxing is wanted, the fact that boxing is a Netflix sport now, as well as on DAZN, as well as on Sky, as well as on Channel 5, is fantastic. TalkSport are all over boxing, as we know in the UK. and you can see it in different places. I'm really excited about the Matchroom and Queensberry friendship or frenemies that's going on DAZN with Oscar as well. Who knows where Ben's going to sort of end up? Will he continue with Sky? Will he go to TNT? Will he come to DAZN? Who knows? Maybe he'll go to Netflix. There's just lots of options now, and I think that is really healthy for boxing. And the most important thing for me always is, James, is the fighters. And if the fighters are getting the best opportunities and are getting well paid, that's why I like my work with GBM, because there's fighters at that level. I like my work with Matchroom and Queensberry, and I like seeing Netflix come in. I can't wait to be there for Casey Taylor's fight in New York with the Voice of Boxing, with my own channel. So there's lots of different ways to access the sport now. And I think the most important thing is that fighters are getting paid. Fighters are getting real chances to change their lives. I guess most recently this year, you've got to look at Josh Padley and what happened to him. That's a prime example. And I think it's brilliant. And for fans, they've got a choice. It's never going to be easy. It's never going to be all in one place. We had it on Sky for many years. Now the majority is on DAZN, but there's never going to be a universal boxing. We know it is a sport like no other. There's never going to be one place where you can see absolutely every single thing. But I'm pleased we're on DAZN, and that's for me the home of boxing. That's where most is. But of course, Sky are hugely important in the UK because of the reach, because of the way that Sky Sports do everything so brilliantly. And now Netflix are coming in. That's a really exciting addition. It's a really great play. And I'm not surprised that Turkey and Dana have chosen Netflix as their platform. Do I think from a DAZN point of view it's disappointing? Maybe not to be doing the Canelo Crawford fight. Yeah, of course, because you want to call all the best boxing in the world. But ultimately, you can't have everything. It's sort of being greedy, isn't it? And I think that it's really good that Netflix are joining the party.
You mentioned Ben Shalom, Boxer, and Sky Sports. There sounds like there may be a split up, going separate ways. We're not quite sure yet on all the details. If that does happen, what happens next for Sky Sports Boxing? Because it would be a real shame for Sky Sports to no longer be a platform for boxing.
I have no doubt that Sky will continue to show boxing. Sky has been the stalwart of boxing in the UK since the early 90s. I joined them in 1994 with Chris Eubank's World Tour, and then Frank Warren came over, and obviously he was there for many, many years. The likes of Mick Hennessy and Ricky Hatton and Frank Maloney, and then obviously Matchroom throughout that time on a sort of smaller way. And then Eddie comes in 2010, 11 and totally changes it. So, and then Ben came and did a 4-year deal with Sky alongside Top Rank. So there's not been one season, 1 year where Sky haven't been in boxing for longer than I've been around it, which is amazing. It's incredible, the commitment that Sky have had to the sport. And yeah, we all know that the big nights, Eddie's gone out quite loud and large in the last few days, saying that there'll never be an era like when he was there. And I probably agree. But there are different eras. It was fantastic when Frank brought us the likes of Hatton and Sue and big fights like that. And Don King was bringing us Tyson fights and Frank Maloney, Lennox Lewis ones. There were always good times. But I think, yeah, the most fun I had at Sky was when Eddie was working really closely with me and with the team. And it was just an amazing period because London 2012 brought us AJ and brought us Katie through. And then it was a real sort of push for heavyweight boxing, for heavyweight box office nights, and for women's boxing to come through. And that's exactly what happened. And I think they were halcyon days. They were fantastic. You can all look at eras. When I grew up on Tommy Holmes, who's still on my wall today, he was my hero, and Barry McGuigan, and great nights and times like that. Or you can say that the heavyweights were fantastic in the Holyfield, Lewis, Bo Tyson era. Or go back before that to Ollie and Frazier and Norton and Foreman, and take your pick. It's very difficult. Everyone loves to sort of go down memory lane and think about what has been. And for me, I think that period between probably 2010 and 2018, 19 was incredible. But then we've had some fantastic nights on Sky we've seen recently with Con Brook and the women's nights at the O2 and at the Albert Hall was fantastic, and the big Callum Simpson night just gone. I mean, it was a shame that they were side by side against each other in many ways, Ipswich and Barnsley. It was such a shame. We wanted to be in both places. But I think Sky has always been massively important for boxing because of the reach, because of the football. And anything that's attached to football means that you can bring a big audience in. So I really, really hope, I know Jonathan Lish and Rob Selms very well. They're both boxing fans. Obviously, Ed Robinson and Andy Scott and the whole team are. And not only will Sky continue, they deserve to continue in a big way. And I think that maybe it's an opportunity to have a little look and see what's out there. Maybe it's an opportunity to give some of the other promoters an opportunity, a chance. And maybe it's also they'll do something with Ben. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. Obviously, I was heavily involved in the past. It's not my position now. I'm at DAZN. I'm loving life at DAZN with Darren and Barry and Carl and Addy and Tony and everyone. It's fantastic. And they've got a great team at DAZN, a young, vibrant team. It reminds me a little bit like of some of the early days at Sky. And I'm really enjoying it. So it's not my situation. It's not really something that I should be commenting on anyway. As I said, I know Jonathan and Rob. I know they want to do boxing, and I'm sure they'll announce something at some stage. That they'll still do, I'm sure, the big events, whether they're from Saudi or wherever the big sort of heavyweight nights, so to speak, the box office events. I'm sure that will still be part of Sky's strategy. The deal with Top Rank has been great to give Sky some big US names and fights, and I can't see a future with Sky out of boxing. But the world is changing, and streaming platforms are coming in, and there's more competition. And Sky were back in the day, James, in 91, 92, when the Premier League came in, and 94, 5 when the boxing started to come in, and rugby league and cricket and all the rest followed. Sky were the enemy. Sky were this sort of small, strange satellite television place where people just were on BBC, ITV, Channel 4. It was a disruptor. And now DAZN have come in, and now Netflix are coming into sport, and I'm sure Amazon will do more, and others will pop up. And that's what happens. It evolves. And what I like to do is keep an eye on what my kids are doing, because they're telling me that it's your own channel, or everyone wants to be a broadcaster now, or they'll hit Netflix for a bit, then they'll hit Amazon, then they'll go and watch something on Sky, then they'll be on DAZN, or they'll flip around. And I think that the generation, even I look at my kids now who are nearly 19, nearly 18 and 14, and even the three of them have different ways of engaging or taking in their content. And it's really fascinating to watch. Like, my eldest daughter will sit and watch sort of normal television as we know it, or shows or things like that, but the other two won't. Even like a year, between 15 months between the eldest two, and my son will look at it in a completely different way. As for my youngest, and I'm sure the ones even younger than her that are coming through that are 8, 9, 10 now are just utilizing different content. I don't think many people sit around TV and watch it for hours and hours anymore. They don't have time. So it was interesting watching the French Open the other day, which was the longest French Open final in history, and almost like I had to try and get on with a million other things while I was watching the tennis, whereas in the old days I would have watched the whole match, because maybe there wouldn't have been the social media to play along with, or other things going on. It's so busy now that you have to catch people's imagination and attention really quickly. So that's why, for me, DAZN is great, because it's a one hit thing. You know, you can go to DAZN and see Queensberry, Matchroom, and GBM, and Golden Boy, and it's all in one house, which is fantastic. But other things are going to pop up, and it's really important for the health of boxing in this country that Sky, in my opinion, continue in a big way. How they continue, that's up to them. You know, cut me open and I bled Sky for 30 years, but I'm in a different place now. I work with DAZN. I'm happy. I'm really excited to be part of their team, and it's a really, really good team in the likes of Darren and Carl and Tony and Barry. There's some amazing people around, and it's fresh for me, so I'm really enjoying that. But I love my Sky friends and former colleagues, and I just really hope that Johnny and Matt and Andy Clark and Andy Scott and all that have terrific boxing to call in the years to come. I think it's really important that Sky are very much involved in boxing, but there's no doubt with Eddie and Frank in the UK that the home of boxing is DAZN, and I'm just pleased to find myself there, and I'm really enjoying my sort of week by week work with them, and the fights are just getting bigger and better, especially in Britain. I think this year has really come back. I think some of the first Queensberry shows on DAZN have been fantastic, and there's been upsets, and we've had Anthony Kakache beat Lee Wood in a thriller. Then we had Johnny Fisher getting turned over. We had Echo Esserman beating Josh Taylor away, and almost Justice Heaney beating Fabio Wardley. So there's been really good fights at that sort of level. GBM always putting on 50-50 fights. I think it's really strong British boxing at the moment. Callum Simpson was a great show on Saturday night. Ben's also had recently Ben Whitaker and Liam Cameron, and the women, that show I loved at the Albert Hall. So I think the UK boxing is in a really good place, and I think what's happening outside is that America is heating up again. There's more and more shows coming to the States with what Riyadh Season and Ring's doing, and what Turkey's done in turning boxing all over the place in the last couple of years, making everybody work with everyone, and the big fights being made. I don't think there's maybe a better time that there's been for boxing, and so no wonder Netflix are coming in and want a part of it, and probably Amazon too, and yeah, we're all going to be on our toes, and it's great for the sport. But yeah, I'm really hopeful that Sky will continue in a big way.
Absolutely. You mentioned something quite interesting, Adam, and you said it's about the new generation and how they absorb their content. And as you mentioned, it's all about almost short form content. You've got to grab the attention straight away. How do you bring that into your commentary? How do you try to grab that attention from the viewers immediately almost?
I think that's a really good point. You always ask good questions, James. I think that it's about storytelling still. I think storytelling was the key to pay-per-view, was the key to building up the big events. You've got to be interested. You've got to have something to grip onto. There's so much around now. There's so many things that that viewers, fans can get involved in, that you have to make it something which is unmissable. Look, there's always going to be a trade set of boxing fans that are going to watch as much as they can, because they're fight fans. You, me, the people that we see week in, week out around the quite small, I guess, rather dysfunctional boxing family that there is, and the characters that are in that. We're a sort of big cluster, aren't we? And away from that, it was always important when I was at Sky to look at sort of how to get the casual fans in, and we went to different sports and thought, okay, Andy Murray was a big boxing fan, so let's try and hit him and get Wayne Rooney and Steven Gerrard to talk about boxing in the football space, and get I don't know, Joe Root and I don't know, some of the cricketers to talk about it in their space. Stuart Broad was a big boxing fan. Rory McIlroy in golf. Phil Taylor, some of the darts players, Stephen Bunting, big boxing fans. We tried to do that, so it sort of, the width was there, so that, you know, it helped us push to the casuals, because, you know, the key was that a trade audience was not going to give us big box office figures. We needed to be broader than that, and I think you need obviously fighters that are charismatic, that know how to sell, that are interesting in themselves. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, polar opposites, but people love Fury for this up and down story and the sort of the real guy, and people liked AJ because he was the golden glamour sort of poster boy that everybody could look up to, and the women fancied, and the guys wanted wanted him to succeed because he was so big and strong and looked amazing. And I think all of that, yeah, you have to have that. But then Katie is quiet, but because Katie was loved by Ireland and just this incredible story of a female fighter who came through such hard times to get where she wanted and where she deserved. There's stories. You look at Frotch Groves, you look at Calm Brook, you look at Mayweather Pacquiao, you look at rivalries, and there's got to be a reason to be interested. That's the key. And I think storytelling should come back in many ways. I think sometimes we've lost it and we've just put on fights. And I think what Turkey's done is he's made these amazing fights reality. So like we waited years for AJ Fury or AJ Wilder, all those sort of fights. And suddenly Turkey's come in and said, right, the best have got to fight the best, and you guys work out a way of doing it, right? Everybody's got together. Now you've got Eddie and Frank working on one channel on DAZN. Even Ben comes in. You've got all of that for a Riyadh season show. He's now gone and got the king of UFC in Dana and trying something different there. And what's Dana great at? He's been great at storytelling and packaging UFC as something where it doesn't really matter who's fighting. You just know what you're going to get with UFC, whether it's UFC 200 or 300. Okay, yes, there's Conor McGregor. There's the ones that sort of that raise the bar. But generally, with UFC, you're going to get great fights. And if you're within that space, you're going to learn about the characters and the personalities. And that's the key, right? Why is Callum Simpson in Britain an attraction to me? Okay, he ticks the boxes. He looks good. He can fight. He can sell tickets. He's a man of the people. He's always around boxing. He's in an exciting division. I mean, tick, 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 right? It's sort of not rocket science. It's like you've got something there. Okay, so we've nearly got the full package there. What do you do with that? Okay, a rivalry. Okay, don't think he likes Ben Whittaker that much, right? And Ben and him at light heavyweight. Okay, it may not work, but that's something down the line. Dalton Smith and Adam Azim. Great rivalry, but both nice guys. You've got to sort of have something that we all want to see in the trade, but do people out there know enough about Dalton and Adam yet? Probably not. So we've got to push that and make that into a real story. Canelo and Crawford is a great example. It's a phenomenal fight in boxing, with Crawford going up in the weights and the best fighting the best and all of that. It's brilliant. But I still think if you walk down Acton High Street and you ask people, they'll probably know Canelo. Will they know Crawford? Some. But I don't think you're going to have people going, yeah, Terence Crawford's this and Canelo's that all the way down the high streets in Britain. I just don't think that yet. I think it's still, but how does that fight get populated? By telling the story, by saying this is what Canelo is, this is what he brings, the Mexican machismo, the fights, the brilliance, the fan base, etc. This is what Crawford's done, a 3-weight world champ, 4-weight world champion, whatever it is, I lose count. Do you know what I mean? But because Terence is not this massive sporting name outside of boxing, it's sort of harder. AJ Fury in Britain stops traffic still. People know who they are. If you ask someone down the high street, name me 4 or 5 boxers, they'll go Fury, AJ, or AJ Fury, Eubank, Ben, maybe Katie, possibly. Then after that, you're looking at, would they know better be Evan Bivol? Possibly. Canelo, Crawford, some of them. Would they know a Virgil Ortiz, who's a great fighter, someone like that? I don't know. It's harder. So therefore, to get the young involved, you have to have stories, and that's why they love the KSI or Logan Paul, because they follow them. They're posting every day, the content's there, they feel like they know them, they want to be part of their journey, which is why when KSI fought Logan Paul, it was fascinating because it was boxing at a certain level, but the stories and their interviewing and all of the color around it was brilliant. And I think that's what we've got to remember. And I think Dana coming in is an interesting facet to the business, because that's what UFC did. And yeah, I think we can all learn that. So in my commentaries, or working with DAZN, I think it is. It's looking at how, and I think some of the pieces that DAZN have done, I was watching the Belanga and Shiraz thing, and sort of slightly different takes on things, different ways of getting out. It's about relating to the sports people. It's about being really, really connected. And I think storytelling is still at the heart of it. And I think if you tell the stories and you get people invested and involved, they're going to watch. And if they're not going to watch, they're going to at least see clips. It's going to hit their, and I don't just mean an egg in a face. Yes, okay, that's going to go viral and that's going to increase. But actually, Eubank Ben were a rivalry. They didn't like each other. Dalton and Adam, they sort of like each other, or they respect each other. Is one going to have to be the bad guy? Is it going to get more needle when that fight's finally announced? Probably yes. But I think that we have an opportunity now, with the amount of boxing on DAZN, with Sky going through maybe a change, with some fantastic fighters in Britain, and now America coming out, and now Netflix coming in, streaming platforms, content everywhere. You know, my channel, Voice of Boxing, we just want to get close to fighters and fans. That's what we want to do. And there's the Stomping Ground, there's IFL, there's Boxing Social, there's so many different boxing outlets now. Well, they weren't there 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when Cougar was turning up with a camera. They weren't there. That's all evolved. So you have to go with things that are evolving. And I think it's important to make sure the younger generation are satisfied with stories and short form stuff and hitting them like that to get their attention. And I think it's also important for, you know, people of my age and older who have always enjoyed the sport of boxing to still have the good fights and their way of watching it as well. So I think you can't just go into one audience. You can't just say, right, it's going to be trade boxing, or it's going to be misfits, or it's going to be a UFC type event, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that. I think that there are lots of different ways still to take in content. Turkey has obviously made a massive change, a fantastic change to our sport by making things possible now. There's more money in it. There's more interest in it. As you said, with Netflix being announced for Canelo Crawford, there's much more interest in it. DAZN, Queensbury coming in, Sky, what's going to happen next? What are Channel 5 going to do? What are the Americans going to do? Are we going to see a sort of HBO or Showtime or something else come through? What are Amazon going to do? And when the big events are put on, it's going to, with the right sort of storytelling, it's going to appeal. And I think that the younger generation, because maybe of the YouTubers getting involved in the sport, and everybody saying at the beginning, oh, we don't want them, they're not good enough, etc. Hang on a minute. If the young want to see them, if people want to watch, then we've got to, it's entertainment. This business is about entertaining. And we have to try and stay ahead of the curve. But I do still think at the heart, it's being interested. It's being gripped by something, and pretty much everything you're gripped by is a story, I feel, a tale, something woven in that gets you, why do you want someone to win? Why am I a Liverpool fan? I'm a Liverpool fan because that's what I've learned since a kid. And I'm passionate. And if you're an Arsenal fan or a Chelsea fan, all you want to do is see your team win, right? With boxing, it's different. You can have lots of different fighters that you like. But it's like, why do I want to be invested in this particular event or this event? Is it we need, like the old days of box office events on Sky, sort of 4 or 5 pillars, almost like the Grand Slam in tennis? Or is it different now? Is it like, actually, we'll have something every other night, but providing it's quick, or it's different, or it's novel, or if it's new, or if it's in a slightly different form of content, great. But ultimately, people are still going to watch boxing because they love boxing. The trade fans are going to be there. We've got to keep them happy, and we've got to add to it by delivering narrative that is compelling, that is new, but also takes into account the older audience. And it's hard. It's not easy, and It wasn't easy at Sky. It's not easy at anything really. Netflix are looking into it, saying, right, we'll get into this. What are their long-term goals? What do they really want to do? But they're dipping their toe in, and I love it. So yeah, look, I think it's very exciting the coming months and years with boxing, because people are boxing. They're boxing from different worlds, and I think that we have to accept that that's all happening. Whether you like Jake Paul and Mike Tyson or you don't, you're going to watch it because it's got an interest. And I think it's about matching fairly, getting those stories out and told, and being invested in it, and having a bit of fun with it too. I think that's important. A bit of light and shade. It's a hard sport. It's the most difficult of sports, but there's a lot of elements to it where fighters are cool people, and the more you get to know them, the cooler it is, really. If you say to me, what have I loved most about working in boxing, it's the fighters. It's hanging with the fighters, getting to know them, finding out why they really want to get in the ring. What do they feel? What are their backgrounds? What are their aspirations, their ambitions? How hard are things? All of that. I think that's really exciting. And the more we get that out to the younger audience in a short, snappy content form, the more they're going to want to watch the big fights. Because ultimately, there's nothing like a big fight. And it's just getting them there to that point. So for me, it's storytelling.